to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and from there we will go to approval of the agenda, and I'll take a motion.
I move we approve the agenda.
Any discussion?
Great idea.
I would like to make a motion to, when it's appropriate, to amend the agenda.
Okay.
The item that's ER3 in the, well, that part of the section, ER3, I would like to postpone that particular section for another month.
And that is under the assurance of organizational performance and
Right.
policy review,
Right.
the monitoring reports, okay?
Right.
Does anyone have any questions, concerns
So
on
I
that?
would move to postpone the review of ER3 till next month. There's some information that's not there that I want to see covered.
Reasonable.
Okay, you okay with that amendment to the motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so the approval has been done, and public comments. Nobody has signed in, but we will allow this opportunity. If anyone would like to address the board, to do so now. All right, and there's another opportunity at the end of the meeting to do the same. We'll start with board member comments. We'll start with Leanna.
I don't have any today.
Cool. Laura?
I don't have anything huge, but I am really happy to see the best mechanic in all of the school districts in the state of Washington sitting right there. Sorry, Jerry, just had to do it. I know you hate that. Other than that, I'm just really excited about school starting. I feel it in the air.
All right.
That's just smoke. That's
Oh.
literally smoke in there.
Guys, ready?
John?
Well, Craig and I talked a bit about the priorities. I think it's an interesting idea with respect to representative government, since I represent us for WASDA, to see what you folks are actually thinking. So we have to prioritize. Of the 120 or some standing positions or new positions of WASDA, we've been asked to, those are legislative, on the legislative committee have been asked to prioritize into the top 15. And I've given my top 15 for that, and I've been open for comments from my colleagues on any other ideas that they might have. So that is the main, Craig and I listened in to a, what do you call those?
Webinar.
Webinar.
Or a conference call
Which
thing.
was basically orienting us to what's coming up for the Legislative Assembly, which is in late September. And I put in, you folks might be interested in this, they offered us free books. And I put in for a set of free books for us all. They have not yet arrived. Of course, I wouldn't know. I guess they'll be sent here. So I guess they haven't yet arrived. But
What are they?
that's the main thing I've done for you lately.
What's the book?
It is about public positions and legislative business that would be of interest to school board members.
That's very cool. Thank you, John.
All right, I do not have anything. Art, do you have anything?
Very little, just I'm in the middle of course, the incredibly busy summer camp season, which isn't going to end for me till the 10th of September because I have the 6th grade kids coming from Hawkins to extend the summer for me. And I'm looking really forward to that. I'm also scared about it. I want it to succeed, but you never know. They haven't done this before, so. Otherwise, I've had no chance to do anything, and I can't get onto the computer at all, and so I have to come in early, and that's why I had to postpone the thing, because I didn't have a chance to see the stuff that I needed to see, that wasn't there, and that kind of stuff, and so that's probably going to go on until next September. But then once the summer's over with at the camp, then the computer will start working, because everyone that's in the camp is using up all the bandwidth, and I get 0. So that's it.
Okay. All right. With that, we will move on to the consent items. And I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have one comment or question, I guess.
Okay.
And this one is, I guess, to the superintendent. We frequently see surplus from the schools of various things, and oftentimes it's books, and certainly in the case of the high school, it's books. And I realize that I see a lot, and I really never asked the question because I didn't think of it until really now. Most of the books that are surplus say unused or damaged. I can get the damaged. But the unused makes me wonder, why are they being unused? Is it that we get books that we don't know if the kids are going to use them or not, and it's usually one copy.
Those tend to be library books,
Mhm.
and the library people doing the orders get the advice that this would be something that kids would be interested in, or they look at trends and try to predict that and purchase books, and then they sit on the shelf for several years and nobody reads them. So then they get surplus so they can replace them with something that maybe kids will read more.
Well, that makes sense. I kind of guessed that was the answer. So then what happens to those books?
A lot of different things. When we do surplus, we announce to people, to other educational school districts, et cetera, other governmental agencies, that we have surplus items. That gives people an opportunity to purchase them from us. And then, we go through a process. If there's no way that no one that wants to purchase them, then there are various places that they can be passed on to. Either, we don't usually, some things that we surplus end up in, going to the garbage in some form, but books we usually try to find some place where they will be used.
Uh-huh.
So, sometimes people like the Boys and Girls Club put them in their library, different things like that.
Right.
So.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I did have one regarding the district school calendar for 19 and 20. I see it's all approved and all that stuff. What's kind of the over-under on any changes to that before then?
There aren't a lot of changes. It's very much aligned with our current calendar, but as you know, we have a board policy expectation that we will have 2 years of calendars running. And we waited a little. We usually do this in the April-May timeframe, but we waited a little bit because there were some calendar considerations that were part of our negotiation process with NMEA, and we wanted to make sure that we were through that part of the conversation, and certainly our partners in the bargaining unit wanted to make sure as well. So we felt we were at a place where we could commit to a similar calendar to the one we've had in recent years that meets all those requirements that the board set forth, starting after Labor Day, et cetera, for the 1920 year. And so we agreed on this, knowing that if there are any changes made as we near the end of negotiations, and when that is finalized, that we might have to bring an amended 1920 calendar to the board.
Okay. That's all I have. No further discussion. I'll call for the vote to approve the consent items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Passes. All right, moving quickly. I love this. Board development and linkage. We'll start with the superintendent's update with budget status update.
So this is our information on where we ended the month of July. We'll start with our smaller funds, capital projects. We're continuing to chip away at our fund balance there as we pay down the stadium. So we're currently at about $2.5 million left in the capital projects fund. We did just receive a fairly significant state match payment that one of my accounting technicians put in for. That's close to $500,000, which is about $100,000 over what we had even put in for. So based upon their calculations, we were owed about $500,000. So we're going to see a bump to that fund balance for
Right.
in the coming month. Debt service, we're about 2.4 million. Debt service fund is healthy at this point. ASB, we're at 304,000, just under 305,000. We're not seeing a whole lot of activity, being that it's summer, so into August, we didn't have much that actually left that fund. Transportation vehicle, after the paying that for the engine, we're at about 31,000, but this month we'll receive our depreciation payment. That's in the $120,000 range, so we're gonna see that fund balance increase, and we're currently in the process of purchasing a new bus, which part of that's going to be reimbursed to us through that Department of Ecology grant that we received.
I have a question on, and I'm going to use the transportation vehicle fund as the template for the question because it's a generic question, really.
Okay.
But I see figures lots of times that are very, very close one month to the next to each other. And a transportation vehicle fund, you know, is really a good example for that. And they're so close, it's like, well, somebody maybe went out to lunch and spent $20, or except it's usually an increase.
Yep.
And so somebody gave you a lunch or whatever it is, gave you the funds for lunch. Is that, what is that reflecting?
Interest.
That's what I thought.
So I'm doing,
Okay.
I transfer over through some specific calculations. I transfer over whatever's left in our fund after I've taken out what our warrants are going to be, what we're expecting to come through that fund. I transfer everything else out into like state pools, and then we receive interest based upon whatever fund balance is sitting there in that state pool. So a lot of the times when you're seeing those small incremental increases, especially on the funds that have less of a balance, it's
Right.
more noticeable.
Right.
That's what you're seeing, is those interest payments.
Yeah, $20, $60, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff like that. And of course, I just have to throw this, you know, the comment in just for Jerry's sake. That means that somebody didn't donate $20 so he can buy some more nuts and bolts. Right.
No, sadly, they did not.
Right, okay, thanks.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's our smaller fund. So general fund, nothing super exciting for the month of July, but one of the things that I did want to point out for the revenues, if you're looking at those semicircles on the top, each time you see the number that's sort of in the black that cuts through your semicircle, that's showing you where we are to date based upon where we're supposed to be at the end of the year, which is 100%, okay? So we still have one full month of revenues to collect, but you can see across the board, we're already in the 98, 99 percentile. So that shows you that our revenues are obviously going to be over 100% of what was originally budgeted for this year. When you look at that number that says trend year-to-date revenues, trend year-to-date local sources and state sources, that's based upon previous year trends and where they would expect for us to be at this point. So, for example, actual year-to-date revenues were at just under 97%. Based upon prior year trends, we should actually be at about 91.5%, showing that we have increased revenues for this year that weren't anticipated. Again, I like to point this out, State Forest, we received more, so now we're at 1.1 million in State Forest collection. That's non-deductible, so that's obviously very positive. We'll jump over to the expenditures page. Our expenditures, they are trending higher in all of those areas, but like you saw on the other page, all of our revenues are trending higher, so we would expect to see the same on expenditures as well.
And this is still the continuation, right, of this last year that we extended from last month. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're
It's all
That's
part of the same
Okay.
fiscal year. Yep, yep. The next page, when we're looking at our month-end fund balances, we've been trending to end the year right around 2.5 million for our fund balance. We're still trending to end our fund balance right at that point based upon our current budgeted expenditures that will keep us fairly well over the 8% minimum fund balance policy, so that's good to see. It looks like we're going to be ending probably right around 2,521,000 as of the end of August. Our next section, dealing with a little bit more detail, one of the places that I wanted to point out, if you're looking at the second box there on the right-hand side for our revenue section, For local support for non-tax and for state general purpose, you're looking at both of those numbers being over 100%. That means based upon budgeted, we've already collected everything that was supposed to be budgeted, and I still have another apportionment payment coming in at the end of the month, which I'm anticipating to be around $1.9 million. So obviously we're gonna be well over 100% for revenue collection. Expenditures, I pointed it out last month, but our supply purchases are well under budget. Purchase services were more based upon some contracting that we had to do for some specialized positions that we weren't able to fill. And then on top of that, that also includes payments for Feller for the construction being done down there. Okay, and then last page. This goes into even more detail, breaking down each one of those categories. So you can see where it's saying that we should be trending at about $1.3 million over for our state revenues by the end of this year, which is going to be right on there. The total payment should be about 1.9. Some of that's going to be federal revenues that gets passed through the state. So that's a nice, quick, brief summation of July. Do you guys have any questions regarding July or ending? Okay. Sounds good. I will see you guys again shortly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Teaching and learning update.
Yeah, we have lots of really exciting things to share. So as we gear up for the start of the new school year, we've had some really important work happening. In the last week, our kindergarten teaching team met. We talked about last spring. We took a look at the needs of our kids in our district and our community, and what skills kids are coming to school with or without. And we made a decision to kind of do a stop and restart and look at our curriculum and how kindergarten feels and looks every day, and develop a play-based curriculum for kindergarten. So our teachers have been working on that. They spent some time last week getting that figuring out what things need to be purchased to support their efforts with our kids, and we're looking forward to our kids having that rich and playful but still rigorous opportunity for learning and for becoming accustomed to school in this coming year. So that was very exciting. As you also know, as a result of the CEE surveys that we took, of our other deep dive into data that we have across the district, we determined that although we have lots of really great things going on for kids in lots of places, and we are proud of our staff and their efforts on behalf of kids, we have not been getting the results that we might like to see. And we determined that part of that is because although we have lots of good things going on, those aren't supported by solid systems. And so we have been looking very carefully at how to strengthen those systems across the district. We determined that we were going to build a multi-tiered systems of support for academics, behavior, and social emotional learning areas for our kids, based on the things that we're already doing, but systematizing them, making sure they're done well and with support, and making sure that things are happening in a way that makes sense across the board. So our administrators, and then also our multi-tiered system of support leadership team that includes representation from our bargaining units and our other key positions around the district, have also been meeting to put together our 5-year plan is the starting place, which will become, instead of a more traditional district improvement plan, that 5-year plan for the development and implementation of our multi-tiered system of support will be our district improvement plan, and will guide our school improvement work. They've been working on that. Next week, those leaders meet with their building teams to go dive further into that and to start looking at what needs to be in place and what we're going to do. So some really exciting things happening there, really positive for the direction of where we're going as a district. I think those are very powerful. Let's see what else. I think that's a good synopsis for teaching and learning. We also have a lot of other groups meeting. One of the things that is exciting and new as well is high school will be implementing an AVID program next year. So the high school initial team for AVID went to training the first month of August, or first week of August. They are back next week. They are meeting and planning and with the school leadership team for that first year of implementation. They are very excited. They are looking forward to seeing how the work that they can do with AVID can improve the experience for our students starting in 9th grade and on through to graduation. So lots of very exciting things going on.
What's AVID, remind me?
Achievement via individual determination. So it's a system supporting high school students. It is targeted at kids who, it is initially targeted at developing a cohort of target kids that you're going to have in an elective course starting in 9th grade and going through high school. But it's also a series of 11 strategies for success in school and in life that we teach across the board to all the kids in the school, although the kids in the course get a really intensive shot. So it was designed to help kids who are from backgrounds who have nobody in the family has attended college, to have the skills and be prepared to attend college, so that that's not a choice that's taken away from them, although AVID will also support kids in making other career choices if those are the right ones for them, but they will have the opportunity to make the choice instead of having the choice made for them. So with our demographics, with about 30% of our kids on graduation, 30 to 39% choosing to go to a 4-year college, at least initially, it's a really good fit. And we're very excited about what that will do for our kids.
Excellent. You want to just keep going through your list there?
Just keep going through my list. So
Okay.
capital projects. You may have
Oh,
noticed this is
wait, we have transportation.
Transportation.
Oh, that's even more important. Sorry, guys. I want to thank Jerry for being here tonight, even though you kind of stole my thunder, Laura, and I already did. And also Maureen, our new transportation director, in case you haven't met her. Maureen, can you say hi to everybody?
Hi, Maureen.
She's she's been here for just a couple of weeks, and she's working hard, and the team has been very helpful in helping her get in down there and get to work, and they're working together very well. But our purpose for inviting them tonight is we wanted to specifically recognize Jerry and our transportation department, but Jerry for his leadership. This is becoming so expected at North Mason that sometimes we forget it's not expected everywhere else. But once again, we received a letter that says, after reviewing the results of the recent Washington State Patrol annual inspection, we recognize that your school district has again completed the inspection of school buses with exceptional results. So we wanted to publicly thank and congratulate our transportation department, but specifically Jerry as our head mechanic, for the work that he and his team do to ensure the safety of our students and our staff as they move to and from school every day. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Want to say anything?
Aw.
Okay. So, capital projects. The big red dumpster out there has nothing to do with capital projects. I want to bring that up. We partner with United Way in the Day of Caring activity, and that is happening on Saturday.
Oh.
And last year was the first year that we did this version of Day of Caring at North Mason. And that is where we provided a place, a free dumping place for people to bring things that need to be removed from their yards or garages or other places. And United Way has partnered with the waste management in Mason County to take care of all of those things. This year, it's even bigger deal because that big red one is for appliances only. So we really didn't have anybody bring appliances last year, but last year was the second year in Shelton, and evidently they did have a ton. So we will have lined up out here on Saturday morning, that one for appliances, another one that's for tires only. And I think we had about 10 dumpster loads of tires last year, so that was a big deal. And then two more that are just for other junk that needs to go away. So then the waste management people will keep their trucks rolling to come and empty things as we fill them up. And it's a really great service to the community. But I did want to assure you that there's not a reason to have a dumpster in front of the middle school.
Could at least been blue.
Especially it's not blue, yeah. So, but our capital projects, Feller is ready to go. They were moving stuff in, this toys and tables and things for the teachers today. Our maintenance staff was beginning the work on that, so we're very excited that that project is nearing completion. The stadium, Mark and I were talking about today, we have an inspection for how deep they're digging the hole for the new scoreboard, and because the scoreboard is so big and heavy, the posts, I know they have a more formal name, but the posts have to go 11 feet into the ground, and so they have to get a bigger auger than the guy that was digging the holes had, so he's having to rent an auger to come.
I have a postal digger at home.
It goes for 11 feet? I'd like to watch you climb down there with that.
I wouldn't be able to reach that far. I have short arms.
Yeah, so anyway, but that's coming along. And then our partnership program with Peninsula Community Health, getting the room actually done, as you know, hit a snag when we determined that there was some old asbestos in the building that needed to be abated. That abatement got completed last week, so work is now underway. However, there were certain things we wanted to have ready right away, and one was that Peninsula Community Health would be available here on campus to do sports physicals, so none of our students would be delayed in being able to participate in fall sports by not being able to find doctors that had space in their schedules or not being able to afford sports physicals. So because the space isn't ready, it's not stopping. Peninsula Community Health is setting up in the nurses' room at the high school to provide those physicals to our students. And in addition, we are working out a plan with them to use the nurses' rooms at the middle school and the high school to provide the services we intended to provide as school starts until later in September when they're able to move into their new space. So we're really excited that we won't have any delays in that service, and that's going to be really good for our kids and our staff, and eventually probably for our families as well. But we want to see how it works for our kids and staff first.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. The next thing I do have to talk about is to give you a heads up about conversations that I am having regarding the Feller wetlands and future ownership of that portion of our properties. And I'm pretty serious in conversations with Department of Fish and Wildlife. Their interest is in taking on ownership of the wetlands and the trails. As you know, their current wetlands and trails facilities that they own in the area are adjacent to the Feller properties that we own, so, and in fact kind of encircle us, so it makes sense from their perspective. In our conversation, we have talked about the educational importance for us and our children in our school district and for the community of the space, and that we can't allow that to be lost. They certainly are also interested in maintaining that focus and in maintaining the recreational opportunities that the wetlands offer for community members. As part of the discussion, we're talking about the district maintaining ownership of the classroom and exhibit room buildings that we built with the grant when we built the trails, and so those would continue to be our property, as we would have access to the wetlands for our educational needs as a result whenever we need that. And then the ownership of and maintenance of the trails themselves and the wetlands and the tidelands would then become the responsibility and go to Department of Fish and Wildlife. So we're putting together a document that would describe what that would mean. I'm talking with our lawyer, Denise Stiffarm, about what kind of documentation we would need to move forward with that so that I could bring it to the board. She is doing some research because this is a little bit different than what was explored right before I arrived here about 5 years ago, in that it's a transfer to another governmental agency. So it might have different steps or not the same steps, and Denise wants to make sure that she supports us in if we decide to go this way. Crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and doing it correctly the first time through. So I look forward to having more detailed plan to bring to you for your consideration. I don't have that yet, so that's where we are on that.
So the idea, we would actually be giving up ownership.
Of the wetlands portion and the trails. And of course, if we did that, we would already, and as we've discussed with them, we would insist on a clause that if they deviated in their use of the property from the original intent of Mr. Theller, that the wetlands ownership then would revert once again to the district.
Oh.
So that's what we're working on.
Could I ask one more question? Where as I take it, the bottom line of this is that it's not legal for us to maintain.
We don't get funds to maintain
Oh.
public parks, and so to use our basic education dollars, for example, to rebuild a trail would be extremely problematic
Yeah.
for the district.
Okay.
So
it has to do with exercising in part our fiduciary responsibility to the community.
yes.
And that when we ask for funds for the community, that they can be reassured they're going for educational purposes.
Right, and if you will remember, when the lands were donated, they were donated in a couple of portions. The first portion was the 5-acre portion that was donated in Mrs. Theller's will originally. And that's the portion that the Theller building, which is becoming the Mary E. Theller Early Childhood Learning Center, sits on, and the play space around there in the parking lot. That's the portion that there was language specifically around a learning environment or, the community involvement. Mr. Theller's portion was a later portion, and that was the big piece of the property and all of the wetlands. And while there is some very specific language about the community and recreational use in there, there is different language in both of those documents. And we have worked really hard to be good stewards of Mr. Theller and Mrs. Theller's intent and what they wanted the community to have as through their bequests. But we are at a place where maintaining those bequests impacts our ability to do our charge, and we have to keep our focus on our charge, which is the education of the children of North Mason. So I believe that the conversation that we're engaged in will result in a plan that does the things that Mr. and Mrs. Theller intended, that do the things that our community would like to see happen, but allow us to focus on the kids and learning portion, and someone else whose job it is to
Yeah.
focus on the recreation of the community to do that portion.
Thank you.
Then, okay, so,
Parks and Trail Agreement.
yeah, so you will want to take a look at that. That's actually the agreement with Mason County Parks that we talked about last session, and with the board and also some of the school leadership's feedback, we went back to Mason County and said, we understand when you built the fields, and many, our predecessors came to an agreement, a couple decades ago about the use of the water. And the water comes from our water tower at Sand Hill, and that we made an agreement to provide water to the ball fields adjacent to Sand Hill that are Mason County Parks and Rec. But we couldn't find and they couldn't find an actual signed copy of the MOU that was agreed upon back then, although we did find one
Way
that
back.
preceded it from Muffy. So we went back and said, we want to change it a little bit. The draft that they gave us that you considered last month limited the district's use of the fields to PE classes or other classroom activities, and that's really not when we need to use the fields. If we're going to use the adjacent field, it really is for district sports activities, and which really does make more sense as a partnership because, as you know, the Mason County Parks, the different sports teams, the community use our facilities at least as much as we need to spill over into that complex. So we changed it so that it would be available when we need it to be available, in the same way that our fields are available when we need them to be available. But we have been paying a fee when for example, Hawkins football team has to play a game there on the Saturday, and so we won't do that anymore. As long as it's available, we'll use the space, but the fee part has gone away through this agreement.
So you need we need to approve that MOU.
Yes, you do.
And so I will take a motion to approve it.
I move that we approve the Mason County Parks and Trails Agreement as presented.
Okay, and discussion. I do appreciate the fact that it seems to be a more equitable agreement than previously. It seemed a pretty one-way street on that. So it does benefit, especially with the amount of water. I know just from past experience with Little League, when they have tournaments, I mean, and then just keeping the fields healthy. It's a lot of our resources that
Right.
the county is using, so. All right, with that said, all those in favor of approving the MOU between Mason County and North Mason School District signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And then the
Passes.
last item I had in there, just as an information item for you, it's been a while since you first took your vote to transfer the piece of property at Sweetwater Creek with the water wheel to the Port of Allen. And the Port of Allen has finally been able to take that effort on their end to accept that transfer. So this is their letter to the RCO, Washington Recreation and Conservation Office, accepting our transfer of the Schindelheim property to them. And so now, together, we get to wait to hear back from RCO that they approve this transfer. You know, this is, for those in the audience who don't know, this is, the reason we did this is the property is not one that we can build on for a school site for geological reasons. And we purchased it, and at the time it was the intent of the district to support the development of a park for the community, which is wonderful, but is again outside our purview. We purchased it with grant dollars, and so the transfer is simply a transfer of the obligations of the grant from one governmental agency to another. So that's it.
All right. Any questions for the superintendent?
Oh, I think it's a good idea, and we could see a pattern in all of these to increasingly sharpen our focus on our core mission.
Is this the same type of thing where if because it's another government taking it, that they do like park stuff with it and they don't sell it off and they can't put buildings on it or what?
RCO, the grant was
Recreation.
granted for the development as a park.
Right.
So in transferring the responsibilities of the grant to the Port of Allen, their responsibility is now to develop a park there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That'll be exciting.
Mhm.
All right. Next will be the community linkage planning and message of the month. Sharon has posted a bunch of different meetings My only request for her is if multiple of us show interest or want to go, that
She helps
assignments
us
be made
describe that.
to
Okay.
prevent a violation of the Open Meetings Act, so,
We can do that.
or a quorum.
And the things that she posts normally are those type of community events that we can all attend if because it's just one of those things, right? That's the way I
Right,
understand
but
it.
yeah, it'd be nice if there's, 4 of us who show interest, that, hey, 4 of you want to go, do all 4 of you really need to go,
Yeah.
is my point. All right. Laura, you've been assigned the September board letter, so good job.
So will this be a back-to-school letter? Okay, I can work with you on that. Okay.
All right. Love how fast we're moving. All right, 2017-18 General Fund Budget Extension Amendment. Thought we already did this.
So do we.
Okay, so sometimes my crystal ball is broken, hence the amendment to something we did just last month. Now, because I was going to come to you and amend it this soon, I decided to do a full-on breakdown for you guys so you guys could understand why we're having to do this amendment. One of the things that happened shortly after we approved the original budget extension, I ended up getting about $250,000 worth of invoices across my desk for Feller construction costs. Like Dana had said, the project is nearing an end at this point, and they all came through at the exact same time. So that was an expense that I wasn't expecting at that point. On top of that, we had a bunch of projects that became pressing to get done this summer. Asphalt at Belfair Elementary to ensure that when students come back, they had a safe place to play. There was also some staff safety concerns as far as food service individuals being able to get in and out of the building, pushing very heavy loads of freight into the building that needed to be done. And like Dan had also said, the asbestos abatement for our center. So these were things that we weren't anticipating necessarily having to do right now, but we did go forward and do them for safety of staff and students. So that increased our expenditures over, well, what would it be, 6 weeks. Okay, so this document shows that our 17-18 budget was expected to be just under 27 million. Our year-to-date expenditures through 7/31 is at 25.8 million. This leaves a budget capacity for 17-18 of $1.1 million, or just under 1.2 million. What I have currently encumbered for to carry us through 17-18 for payroll is just over $2 million. This is for all staff. And then I'm estimating at this point $260,000 of general AP expenditures. We trend at about 200,000. So I gave a little bit of a cushion there just in case something comes through. I can't do another extension, this is it. So we can do an extension and put it out there for much more. It doesn't mean we have to use it, it's just making sure that we have the capacity in case expenditures do come through, because you don't want to go over, or else I'm writing an apology letter to OSPI. Then we have the Feller construction costs of $250,000 also that we need to put in there. That puts us over budget for 17-18 by 1.35 million. Now, with that being said, like I presented in the July monthly update, I'm expecting 1.9 million from OSPI at the end of the month based upon past trends and our increased enrollment. I've been anticipating our ending fund balance to be at $2.5 million. It's still going to be at $2.5 million. Basically what's happening is those additional revenues that have come in, this basically expends those additional revenues that were coming in, which is where we've been trending to. So the budget extension would be the 1.35 million. Our revised budget amount would be 28,339,000. Now, for comparison, because somebody may look at 1.3 million of a budget extension and say that's huge, what happened? In reality, that's actually better than what we were anticipating when the budget was being done last year, because the year-to-date revenues, again, through 7/31/18 of 26,230,000, our estimated August apportionment payment of 1.9 million, it brings our revenues up to 28,130,000. So our expenditures over revenues is only anticipated to be $208,000, okay? But last year, when the budget was done, we were anticipating going over our revenues by $302,000, meaning we're actually $94,000 better off than what we had anticipated we were going to be, if that makes sense. Throwing out a whole bunch of numbers all at once.
I like the place you're arriving.
Exactly. So we received a bunch more revenues. We spent those revenues on things that needed to be done, but even spending those, we're still ending up in a better place where we had originally anticipated we thought we'd be. So all of that being said and done, the new budget extension would bring our general fund budget up to $20,339,337, which is an increase of $1,350,553. So, questions?
Are we gonna see you next month for this?
No
For
now?
chance.
Oh,
Yes.
that's good.
I know.
He's done.
Next month we'll just bring it up to 2. No, this is it. It has to be done as of 8/31.
Okay.
So this should be it, and we'll be done. If something horrific happens, knock on wood, that would be
Don't say that.
completely out of my hands.
Okay.
So that's it for that. So I'm going to sit down and
All right.
public hearing. Oh, go ahead.
Maybe I'm looking on my screen at these numbers. I don't know if that was exactly the same here, but there's a $3 difference between the total expenditures over budget and the budget extension needed. Is that just a slip of the finger?
1350553, 1350553.
What I see is
Oh,
the
I see what
expenditures
you're
are
saying on the
556.
28339.
No. I'm seeing it on the 1350556, and then underneath it 553. Now, maybe I have a different thing than yours. Nope, it's there. The blue line is 553, and the
Oh.
one above it's 556. Why the $3 difference?
That would have been my Excel calculation taking into account something that I can't see on this paper. So I have no idea.
Does that make any difference
Yeah,
here?
which one is
Okay.
No,
good.
it doesn't actually, it doesn't technically make a difference here. And then the number that I pulled for the actual resolution was that number in blue right there, is the 553. But the $3, we should be good. Hopefully. If it really came down to that.
If it came down to that, I'd give you $3.
I'll provide a loan.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and open up a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this budget extension amendment. So I'm not even gonna gavel that. So anyone who would like to speak for or against, you have to come up and speak at the microphone though, Don.
He hates that.
I know, but
I've been saying this since I was on the board back in the 70s. If I had to run my office the way you guys are forced to run this business, I'd be back in the Army in a heartbeat. This is insanity by the legislature and OSBI and all the rest of those people.
Thank you, Dawn.
anybody else? It's hard to follow that up. Okay. One last chance. All right, we're going to go ahead and close that public hearing, and then I will accept a motion to approve resolution 08-G-18.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution, what is it, 10G
08-G-18.
08, okay.
That one?
That
Well,
one.
That number is different than the one
It is,
down here.
it
in
is
the blue.
08. Yeah.
It is
In the
08.
blue, it's wrong, but it should be 08.
Oh, it's 10-G-18. Okay, there's two
It should
different.
be 8-G.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There's two different
It said yes.
resolutions.
Our
The one we're voting on is
18 was
10.
the original one, and then 10 is
Okay,
the amended.
that's
Okay,
right.
so resolution 10G-18.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you were right the first time.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, I move that we accept resolution 10G 18, budget 17-18, extension amendment.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution passes. All right, so next will be the 2018-19 budget resolution adoption.
It's been a busy busy month. Okay, so, I used the exact same presentation I've been using for the last 3 months, so you guys are gonna be fairly familiar with this. I've just been updating figures as we've gotten more data coming in. So enrollment, we're still sticking with our original anticipated enrollment of 2,229 FTE. This is an increase of 36 from the prior year. Our staffing, we're sticking with our original increase for budgeted staffing for next year. This is an increase of 28 actual staff totals split between certificated and classified staff. And then our 2018-19 general fund, so we're anticipating our beginning fund balance to be $2.5 million. Our revenues and other financing sources, they are going to be budgeted at $32,382,555. Our expenditures, so this is our actual budget amount, is going to be $32,053,698, plus our transfers out to the debt service fund to pay for our non-voted debt. That's anticipated to be $438,606. It's going to leave us with an ending fund balance that's going to be approximately just under $2.4 million. Our budget to actual, or our 2-year comparison for revenue, it didn't change too much from our last presentation, but we're looking at about $3.8 million for our local tax. This is partly due to that levy rollback. We're going to see part of that next year and then the full amount the following year. Our local non-tax is expected to be right around $339,500. Our state general apportionment, that's where we're seeing the largest increase, going up to just under $19 million. And then our categorical, we're also seeing a pretty nice increase due to state SPED and LAP funds. So we're looking at about $6.3 million there. Our federal, it's expected to go up some, not significantly. So we're going to be right under 2.7 million. And then our other sources, so this is a culmination of a lot of smaller revenue sources, is going to be right around 181,000, leaving our total revenues at $32,382,554. So now to break down our expenditures, where we're expecting to spend that $32 million. Instruction overall, our main purpose is expected to cost about 75% of our total budget, which is just under $24 million. Our instructional support is about $713,000. Then we have food service, expected to cost around $872,000. Transportation, we did receive an increase in revenue for transportation, so we would expect for our transportation expenses to increase as well at about $1.8 million. Maintenance and operation to keep everything functioning is about $2.4. We have some public activity expenses. This is normally the funds that we use for operation of Feller. And like Dan had explained earlier, one of the reasons why we're trying to move the wetlands to another agency because of those expenditures. And then our district support is going to be just under $2.3 million, bringing our total expenditures to $32,053,000. When we look at our expenditures by object, so this is breaking it down specifically into which classes or objects that we're going to be spending on, our certificated salaries are expected to make up about 41.6% of our total budget. So this is the expenses for our teachers and our certificated admin. Classified salaries are expected to come in next at 17.1%, just under $5.5 million. Benefits for both of those classes are expected to be about $7.2 million. Our supplies and materials, about $3.3 million. Purchase services are at 1.9, travel at 100,000, and then our capital outlay, which we have earmarked for the roof for Sand Hill. That will bring us to our $32,053,698. So that's our general fund in a nutshell. Moving on to capital projects. Capital projects, and I'll go into it in a little bit more detail when we look at our 4-year budget. Capital projects, we're expecting to deplete that fund over the next 2 years, at least the revenues that we have there currently, because they were put in there specifically for the stadium. We would hope the stadium would be completed within the next 2 years. So you're going to see that our expenditures in this fund are significantly over our revenues. We would expect to see that. We should end the year at under $1 million fund balance for the capital projects fund. We have one payment left from Greatview coming in of $325,000, then they're done. We do have some state match that we would expect on the rest of the project completions as we close out the schools. And then we do have state forest that comes in as well. Debt service, again, we're looking really good in our debt service fund. We are expected to end the year right around 2.4 million, so our beginning fund balance then would be 2.4 million. Our revenues coming in from the local property taxes, timber excise taxes, and the general fund transfer that I need to do is going to be about 3.4 million. Our expenditures are expected to be just about $200,000 less than that, leaving our ending fund balance just over 2.5 million. So we'll see an increase in fund balance, which is good because we're going to start seeing our debt service payments increase in future years as well. The transportation vehicle fund, we're not getting a lot in depreciation payments. So I've been working with Melanie, our new transportation director, to figure out what we're going to be doing for this fund in the future, as far as getting us a solid bus replacement schedule so we can get some more buses into rotation where we can collect depreciation, so we can start to see our fund balance increase so we can replace more buses at a time. Right now, based upon fund balance, we can replace one bus. It's averaging about 141,000 this year with taxes. So our revenues are expected to be about 122,000 and change in depreciation, plus the 35,000 for our reimbursement, our grant that we're going to get on that one bus purchase. Not expecting to make any transfers out. In previous years, you guys had transfers out of this fund due to the loans that you guys had obtained to purchase buses, but that was paid off last year. So our ending fund balance is expected to be about 141,000, which is enough to purchase one bus in the following year and leave us with not much left in that fund. So we're gonna work on that.
And that's a reoccurring fund, right? That's a.
What is the age of our oldest bus that we would need to replace?
1993.
1993?
Mm-hmm.
And a large bus, the state depreciation replacement schedule is 13 years.
Okay,
We're over that.
we're over that.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Quick
if
math.
you'll remember, there was a point in time when we didn't have any buses and you bought all those buses
Right.
at once. And so that's kind of skewed our fleet and how we can replace. And that's what we're trying to get caught up to, something that makes more sense.
They all dropped off the schedule last year, so the depreciation for last year was was in the 300,000 range, almost mid 300,000s. And that's how the 3 new buses were purchased at the beginning of the year. But since all of those other buses dropped off the schedule at the exact same time, our depreciation took a nosedive. So we just have to get us back on a schedule to be able to purchase more buses over an extended period of time, so our depreciation numbers are higher. That way we can get ourselves on a schedule where we are purchasing like 2-3 buses a year on a continuous basis. That's how that fund
Is there a
funds itself.
forecast of what it's going to take to get to that spot? I mean, is this a 3-year project, a 5-year to get to that point?
Yeah,
Okay.
it honestly depends because there's so many factors that goes into it. Options are, we can do redirections of apportionment from the general fund. But as you know, with everything that we're needing to do through the general fund,
Right.
with salaries and everything, that could be difficult. We could also go out and request a transportation levy. That's an option as well. So we have some options on the table. We're sort of looking at our fleet currently, how many we would have to replace, what that timeline would look like. With Maureen having only been here for, I think, coming up on 3 weeks, we have.
Seems enough time.
We haven't exactly sorted it all out, but she is on top of it,
Cool.
and I know that we will get a good plan together.
Awesome.
Okay, ASB, The beginning fund balance as put together by each one of the buildings is expected to be about $225,324. Revenues that they're expecting to bring in through fundraising sources is expected to be about $432,000. Right now, they have budgeted for $434,000 worth of expenditures, so they're going to even to their fund balance by just a tad bit, leaving them with a fund balance of $223,000 by the end of the year. So that's the details regarding our one-year budget. Do you guys have any questions regarding the information presented?
I do not know.
Okay, so then I'm going to jump into our four-year budget, which this is going to be completely new for you guys. So it's completely new for everyone else. So with the passage of this, the new legislation, one of the requirements was that we present a four-year budget to OSPI, and it's updated on a yearly basis. Now, this document that you're seeing, this isn't something that I did not create the formatting. This was done by
Someone.
OSPI, and this is the format that they are having us utilize, okay? It's a lot of numbers on 11 different pages over and over again. So I'm going to try to jump to some of our important numbers. One of the requirements is that we do an enrollment trend, a four-year enrollment trend. Now, when we're trying to forecast out 4 years from now on what our enrollment's going to be, that can sometimes be a tad bit difficult. So if you scroll down just a little bit, there we go. So when we're looking at enrollment, one more line, Denise, there we go. Okay, so our total enrollment that we budgeted for in this coming year is that 2,229. Basically, all I did is I turned around and I rolled all of our grades up in each subsequent year. Okay, so we are going to see increasing enrollment because we're seeing increasing kindergarten populations coming in. We're seeing an increase in running starts, so we trended that out across the board. That puts us an increase from this coming school year to the following school year of 44, in the subsequent school year, an increase of 33, and in the subsequent school year, an increase of 35. So from this coming year to the fourth year, we're expecting to go from 2,229 to 2,341, so 120-ish increase in 4 years. That's a conservative estimate because we don't want to predict an estimate that's way too out there and then have us come under.
Yeah.
Now, we did see an increase of 60-something students in this last year. I hope that it's going to be that way every year for the next 4 years. But to be on the more conservative side, we budgeted more at 3/4 to a half of that in each of those subsequent years.
I have just one question.
Uh-huh.
Back in the kindergarten FTE, you have 100 and some odd kids there.
Mhm.
Are we reimbursed for, is that the full-time equivalent that we're reimbursed for?
Yeah.
They are paying for the whole thing?
Yeah, they're paying us 17, basically for a class size of 17.
All day?
Kindergarten students.
All day.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so now when it comes to staff counts, again, this is extremely difficult because a lot of different factors go into our staff counts to include categorical funds, federal grant funds that we cannot predict 4 years out. So again, very conservative estimate as far as what our certificated and classified are going to go up. I put us from now to 4 years, 4 years from now, 10 increase on both sides. Okay, this 4-year budget, the numbers in here aren't, shall we say, auditable numbers, meaning there's not going to be somebody that comes in and says, hey, you under budgeted for this. This is to give OSPI a general consensus of where basically is our fund balance is going to be 2, 3, 4 years from now based upon the legislative changes that we're seeing. When we get into our general fund budget, I just want to preface this by saying we're actually doing better than other places, okay? So I'm going to start with that. Okay.
That's never a good way. That's never a good way to start.
Yeah. So if you, let's go down to expenditures, okay? So scroll down to expenditures. A little bit further. There we go. So you can see some negatives in those first 3 years, okay? So this is basically excess of revenues over or excess of expenditures over revenues. So when you're seeing the negative 109, 278, and 3,450, that means that we are eating into our fund balance. Luckily, because of the conservative nature of this district in past years, we have the fund balance to be able to support this change. Statewide, this is what people are experiencing. This is what districts are experiencing. A lot of districts are expecting in the third year to be in a deficit of millions, not $3,450. So that is positive. Then once you see the fourth year come around, when our apportionment picks up and increases, you can see we're back in the positive. So we start building our fund balance again. So this is actually good. This is better than what other people are seeing. I've networked with some other finance directors to see what their 4-year trends are, and out of everybody that I've spoken to, ours is the most positive.
Wow,
So that
that's
is
incredible.
Yes, it is.
How many did you check with?
6.
Mhm.
So of varying sizes too, just to get a general consensus of where people are ending, and some of those being local districts. And so far out of all the local districts, we have some neighbors, unfortunately, in the third year that are seeing $1 million+ deficit to fund balance. So that's, they're working towards overcoming that. If we go to total ending fund balance, okay, there we go. So this is where you see our fund balance is still positive the entire time. Not everybody can say this. So we're at 2.3, then we're going to drop to 2.1, stay around 2.1, and then we start going back up to 2.2. Again, these are all estimates, and this is based upon the conservative enrollment figures that we've put in here as well. So if our enrollment does stay at the same trend that we saw in the last year, we would expect for our ending fund balance to actually be higher. But it's a gamble to go that route, so we are staying in the more conservative nature, and it still shows that we have a positive ending fund balance. So that's what we're looking at for general fund. ASB, there's not going to be a huge impact to ASB, obviously, because of the legislative changes. So you trend out what the students have done historically for fundraising and for expenditures. Because they have been eating into their fund balance by about 1,000, you're going to expect to see that then for the next few years. It still shows that them eating into their fund balance by 2,000 a year, they're still going to have a healthy, positive fund balance. And then if we can go down to debt service. So I did our entire 4-year debt service 4-year budget based upon our long-term debt schedule. So debt service, we can actually look at this and we can actually come up with a solid estimate of where we're expected to be, because I know what our payments for principal and interest are going to be each year. So debt service, over the course of the next 4 years, under the excess of revenues, well, yeah, we can just jump to ending fund. So ending fund balance, we're expecting to go from the 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8. So we're just seeing an increase to our ending fund balance for debt service, which again is positive because our principal payments are going to increase for our large bond as the years go by. Capital projects fund, this is the one that I was saying that you're going to see that after 2 years, our capital projects fund goes to 0. This is assuming no other capital projects. So because we don't have anything that we've specifically budgeted for or is specifically on the horizon right now, I depleted it after the 2 years. Next year, if we do have something on the table that we need to budget for, I'll include that in there, and so that would change.
So that'd be a question of mine with capital projects. If there's something that comes up that the board decides we want to act on, that money has to come from the general fund and transferred into that one?
Correct.
Okay.
Or it would go through some voted debts or something like that, depending upon our bond, depending upon what type of capital project we're talking about.
But capital projects would be different than the debt service, correct? In regards
Correct.
to we're not paying it back.
No, no.
Okay, it's like those are like cash projects. I
Yep.
mean, that's the best way I can think of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So ending fund balance after the course of those 2 years. So we'd see 962, like I put in our budget for this year, and then 277,000 come the next year, at which point we would fully expend it. And by the 4th year, you end up with no activity in that fund. The transportation vehicle fund. Again, I did it with the knowledge that we'd be purchasing one bus a year, because we have not finalized any type of replacement matrix to go off of at this point. So our fund, because we get our depreciation dollars in August, you're always going to see a fund balance there because you get it at August 31st when you get that apportionment payment, and the fiscal year end is August 31st. So our fund balance continues to stay in the 140 to 120 range for those 4 years. But we know that bus purchases, cost of bus purchases are going to increase from year to year. And so eventually we'll get to the point where our depreciation isn't enough to fund the purchase of one bus unless we purchase more and our depreciation becomes larger. So that's basically our 4-year budget, what we're looking at. Again, our 4-year budget is actually really positive. This information that was presented here is, from my viewpoint, actually really good. So based upon my networking and my information that's been coming from other districts on how they're doing with all these all the legislative changes. Again, it is just a budget, things could change, but as of right now, we're looking fairly solid. And then from there, we have the resolution for the budget adoption. So overall, what we're looking at adopting for this budget is basically our 4-year budget summary and enrollment trend, which is what they're calling that, plus our general fund, ASB, debt service, capital projects and transportation, vehicle fund budgets that were presented in the original presentation. Is there any questions?
No. From me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, let me see if I got this one right. So I'll accept a motion to accept resolution 07-G-18, which is the 2018-19 annual budget.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept resolution 10-G-18 budget.
7G.
Beg pardon?
7G18.
7G-18, as described.
Okay. Any discussion?
Do we need to?
No, we don't.
Okay,
What was it? We okay?
we're
Yeah.
good.
You did it last month,
The
Did it last month.
the hearing.
public
Public
hearing.
hearing.
Yeah.
Right. Any comments, questions, or anything like that?
My comment is just, I feel really blessed to have our budget wizard here and working with us. There's a lot of districts that are not so lucky, so thank you for all of your hard work.
I think that to speak to what Ashley said, we get e-clippings from our state association, WASDA, and it's like doom and gloom every day with different districts who are in a bad way. And a lot of it, and I think I'll just say it here, I was going to say it to the end, but a big credit goes to especially 3 of these members who have been on quite a while for the conservative budgeting. And the fact, I know when we ran the bond, we could have gone for a lot more because we had the capacity and we were conservative. And with what a lot of the districts are running into is the limiting of the local property tax. A lot of people were maxed out. North Mason took what we needed. And I think that's a big credit to past board members, current board members, and past administration. And that's those skimping years, the years that we skimped has proved to be a positive. So I guess it's a good lesson to have to go forward. So, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to add, it gives me a great deal of satisfaction to be able to call myself a fiscal hawk.
Thanks, John. All right. Any more comment? No? No? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the resolution 07G-18, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution passes. All right. Whew. Moving on to assurances of organizational performance and policy review. And the first one, what we are going to do is Executive Requirements 1, which is the expectations of the superintendent.
Okay, I would just like to, first of all, read this
Please.
ER1 policy. It's, the superintendent shall cause or allow only those practices, activities, decisions, conditions, procedures, or organizational circumstances which are lawful, ethical, safe, respectful, prudent, fair, equitable, dignified, and in compliance with contract, state, and federal law and regulation, board policy, and collective bargaining agreements, and that is a tall order. And I believe that our superintendent is in compliance with this particular expectation, and has given us a very detailed monitoring report about how she has met the conditions of this policy. So that's my statement.
Okay.
Here, here. That's mine.
I will, I'll entertain a motion to approve or accept the monitoring report for ER1, expectations of the superintendent.
I move we accept the monitoring report for ER1.
Okay, and so discussion on the monitoring report. I do. I had the opportunity to be in the entrance and the exit interview for our audit just a few months ago. And it was excellent. Rock stars. Appreciate what you do. It's probably not very easy to operate within these wide parameters with these 5 personalities up here all the time. So, but you guys do a great job. So,
Thank you.
all right. Any other? I'm not gonna hog it all.
Oh, hog away.
All right. No more comment. All those in favor of accepting ER1, certify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. ER1 has been.
Well, not really. This is just, I don't mean to be picky or whatever, but the wording was, you were just accepting the report.
Oh.
What we need to really do is yes or no on finding the superintendent's performance
You're
to
right.
comply with.
Oh,
You're right.
let me restate. I move that the board find the superintendent's performance to comply with ER.
Okay. Any comment on that? Words have meaning, Laura.
I know, I'm there.
All right. Okay. All those in favor of finding the superintendent in compliance with ER1? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. In compliance.
To comply with.
To comply with, correct. Laura's very good at that.
This is getting off the rails awful quick.
I know.
All right. So the next one will be ER4, budget planning, monitoring reports. Laura, do you want to read this one too?
Sure. Okay, financial planning for any fiscal year shall not deviate materially from the board's policies, risk fiscal jeopardy to the district, or fail to be derived from a multi-year plan. Accordingly, the superintendent shall present to the board a recommended budget which is consistent with the board's established priorities, is in a comprehensive summary format understandable to the board and community, adequately describes major budget initiatives and funding sources, compare for each major budget fund type and activity the amount of actual expenditures for the most recently closed fiscal year, budgeted expenditures for the current fiscal year, and proposed budget expenditures for the next fiscal year, discloses major budget development assumptions, including anticipated changes in state funding, provides adequate and reasonable budget support for board development and other governance priorities, including the costs of fiscal audits, board and committee meetings, board memberships, and district legal fees, takes into consideration fiscal soundness in future years, or ignores the building of organizational capabilities sufficient to achieve ends in future years, reflects anticipated changes in employee compensation, including inflationary adjustments, step increases, and benefits. Further, the superintendent shall not present to the board a recommended budget which plans for the expenditure in any fiscal year of more funds than are conservatively projected to be received or appropriated during the year, unless otherwise approved by the board in a multi-year projection, and plans for the reduction without approval of the board of the unreserved and undesignated general fund balance for any fiscal year to less than 3% of total expenditures.
Can I take a motion to find the superintendent in compliance?
So moved.
Okay, so discussion. That last line is not
Correct.
It
in
should
line with
say
our policy.
8%.
It should say 8%, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
and the one that we have on file says 4 to 6. So that,
Didn't we amend the
No,
one on
we
file?
did, but it's just, that's not what was
It
on
needs to be
the.
reflected here.
Right,
Got that?
so
Okay.
those just need to be updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a form at this point for,
Yes.
to be able to put in your information.
Right, but for the actual report, it's a
Right.
completely different number. So if we're going to accept this, I would like to accept it with the,
Yes.
Correct
that
numbers.
being
Right.
corrected. Any other? No?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so moved. All right, where am I at? Policy review. E5, responsible citizens. Art, do you want to read that one?
As soon as it shows up.
Well, we discussed this at the last meeting. Do we need to read
Yeah,
it
we
again?
don't.
Oh, okay, I
There-
just-
There is a change in it, which is reflected in there, but
I think we,
Thought that-
we don't need to redo it,
Okay,
I don't think.
I thought that's what we were, okay.
So what we're looking at is if we
we
want to make
haven't
any
amended
further
it.
changes, this is the last chance to do that unless we specifically look at it again.
Okay. Anybody have any changes to the changes?
Nope, I'm good with both of those.
Okay.
And the same with
So
the
every time I go,
organizational
every time I
continuity.
backspace, it goes right back to the
Yeah.
beginning.
That's a trouble with computers.
Yeah, they'll never take off. All right. Organizational continuity, ER2. Anybody have any comments or any corrections before?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
So before you move on to the next, number 7,
Okay.
I have a comment, just in general. I thought that was really nice that you had Laura read the ERs there, that we went through that. You know, we've not really done that before. We've just, because we know what we're doing. This is our bread and butter, and I think it's actually kind of neat to have it go out on the video or whatever it is to know that this is the real work that we're doing. This is the stuff that we slaved over to create in the first place. And, you know, and I've said this before in these meetings that this is our bread and butter, but now you've got other people to understand exactly what it is we were doing, rather than just simply glossing over it like we do all the time. Sorry that you had to read so much, though.
It's fine. It's fine.
End of comment.
Okay, so going into adjournment, announcements and comments from the public, if anybody would like to. Gotta come back up to the microphone.
You guys noticed that Art makes corrections on parliamentary procedure.
That's why he sits right here.
I know, well, I want to give him credit, I know I'm biased, but this is what he's teaching middle school kids in the Builders Club meetings, the parliamentary procedure. It's blowing my mind because I know nothing about it, I'm learning as I go along, but the kids actually are learning how to run a meeting and do it right. That's because of Art.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just have a couple questions. That's all right.
Sure.
I've been looking around at all the fields that have been upgraded, and I look at the softball field, and it looks like garbage. Is that something that's looked at being upgraded? Because as of right now, you compare baseball to softball. Looks kind of like a Title IX issue maybe in the future. So,
We are working on a plan right now.
okay. So how
We
long?
expect to complete it this year.
A new field this year? Or
We're
two
working
more
on,
it?
we're working on it. The
Okay.
person to ask where that plan is Mark Swafford, the athletic director.
Okay.
Okay, and if you're not happy, then you can come and call me and I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
Okay?
So that's something that's being talked about. Is there a budget kind of set aside for that?
Well,
or-
it depends. We didn't have budget in any of our bonds for a softball field, but we have identified that that is a concern
Okay.
for the very reasons that you stated. And so, you know, as we finish the project that we have left.
Right.
We're anticipating some remaining funds.
Right.
So those will be able to move towards that, as well as we have had success in this district in the past in partnering with our community members to do things when we haven't had other resources to do it. So that plan very well may be partnering with community members who have the skills and the resources to help us get it done sooner rather than waiting for the next time we can run a bond or a levy. So,
Okay, so that-
we're aiming at this year.
So like, I hate to put you on the spot, but you said there was like 270,000 that was just kind of sitting there that you kind of deducted just to close out the capital
Let's-
budget?
Can we, so we respect the board meeting,
Oh, sorry.
we can have a full discussion, you and I and Ashley, in
Okay,
just a
I
couple
just-
minutes.
Sorry, didn't realize that's how it works. So
No, that's
this is
fine.
the
No,
first
it's
time.
okay.
No, that's
fine.
Yeah,
Alright.
no,
Hey,
but,
I'll
Can I
take
get
it.
your name though for our
It's a
roster?
good, it's a good
Joe
question.
Heyman.
yeah, but Joe, stay here and we'll go over
Yeah, I
it in
will.
detail.
I'll just go sit down so you guys can keep going and I'll talk to you.
Okay,
No, thanks
great.
for
Sorry.
coming up. No, thanks for coming up though. I appreciate it.
No, he has a really good softball
Absolutely a
player
good
daughter. You have to know that he's got a personal thing.
And just from
That girl is good.
And just from a kind of a board, and I will use my privilege here as president to speak about it. Some of the compounding factors that we've had with especially that section of the campus is a lot of the questions regarding future transportation projects going through, not wanting to put in a bunch of capital if we're going to lose it. So it's not a very good excuse as to, I mean, things need to be equitable. But there has been a lot of these long-range problems where we're kind of, me personally, I feel like we've been constantly put in some sort of hold pattern.
Right.
So
So we're moving forward with a different location, and we can talk about it in a minute.
Centrex area.
Yeah,
No, I understand. We lived where the bypass was supposed to go
yeah.
for 20 years.
There you go.
Know exactly what it
okay.
is.
Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Okay. Board and superintendent, and I'll just throw it out, whoever would like to have any comments.
Well, I'd just like to welcome Maureen, our new transportation director. You have a wonderful group of bus drivers and mechanics, and the staff down there is excellent. The potlucks are out of this world. I don't know if you still do those, but they were great down there.
I hear they're very good.
Yeah, yeah,
Always experience.
yeah. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Transportation Department for that award. I think anyone who's driven any of the roads in this district would realize what an undertaking it is. Probably just maybe maintaining minimal passing standards for buses, but to be exceptional, to be outlined as exceptional by the State Patrol and the state. I know a challenge we had here as a district for a while ago when it came to some legislation was we were only being funded for miles as the crow flies, and it says I live a half mile from Razor Road, but the 17 miles I have to go up north and come back down 106 would suggest otherwise. So a lot of challenges, and you guys have done a great job. We really greatly appreciate it from up here, so thank you so much.
Especially when you can keep a 23-year-old bus running, Jerry.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I would just like to add to that, we are actually a poster child for the state when it comes to being outside all the expected borderlines when it comes to transportation funding. We've actually got, in one publication I've seen, we have our own fold-out, of the district that is left in the lurch when it comes to the budget allocation for transportation.
And yet they operate sort of in the black, so.
Here, here.
At least help the district do that. It's really positive.
Okay, so next we will go to our board self-assessment, which will be Laura.
Okay. This is the assessment method that we use at the end of every meeting to basically monitor our own behavior as a board. And it's basically two general categories. One is meeting behavior and the other is governance principles review. And I won't read them all. I'm not going to keep you that long. But there's a list of about 20 items here that we are either giving ourselves a satisfactory, not satisfactory, or not applicable. And overall, I gave us a satisfactory.
Our next board meeting date will be in here on September 20th, 2018, at 6:30 PM. And then we are going to go, right now, we're going to go into a closed session, executive session, to discuss collective bargaining. And we will be in there for approximately 30 minutes, of which, do we have any, it doesn't say if we have, I don't think we have any action.
There will be no action.
No action will be taken after that. So we're going to recess into executive session.
Can we start that session in about 10 minutes?
Yeah, can you
Just to give us
can we
about
take a
10
break?
Yes.
And then I
Oh,
can.
absolutely.
And then start it?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I
Sure.
can answer questions.
Please.
Thank
So
you.
we'll start in 10 minutes.
And then you can have
Very good.
breaks to do whatever you need to do while we're talking to Joe.
I need to have some blackberries.